Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. I wanted to introduce someone who has created a fantastic podcast on YouTube. His name is Ahmed from the University of Iowa College of Pharmacy. And the next 5 days, you're going to hear one episode each day. And I encourage you to go to his channel to subscribe at YourPop, YOURPOP. It stands for the Your Pursuit of Purpose podcast, where he interviews successful people and how they got down their leadership road. So hopefully you'll subscribe. 2,000 people already have in the last month, and here we go.
And lastly, I straight up tell during interviews when they ask you why should we hire you? It sounds very cliche, but I'll straight up tell them hey, although I don't have the relevant experience, one thing that I'm really, really good at is the ability to adapt. I can adapt to any situation you put me in, and I am a hard worker. So although I might not know something, I have a willingness to learn, and I can pick it up.
What's going on, guys? This is Ahmed, and I'm here again with Ahmed Ismail for episode 5 of the Your Pursuit of Purpose podcast. I actually decided to bring him back on because his internship that he got at GE has a very unique story, and generally speaking, how he got to that point and what led up to it, it's a very intriguing story, so I decided to dedicate this whole episode just for that. So Ahmed, can you kind of just take us back to when you were graduating high school, and were you at the point where most high school graduates are at, and it's that what now phase. You graduated high school, you got your diploma.
I won't even say just high school students, honestly. There's you call it like an epidemic throughout the U.S. where it's just everyone's just graduating, even college. And as they graduate, they're just like, now what? It's like the movie Graduate. Hated that movie, but it's like the only part I remember from it in high school. It's just like that ending. It's just like, now what?
Right.
Like, we're doing this. Like, it's something you see just throughout the U.S., but coming out of high school, had no clue what I wanted to do. I was undeclared first year. I actually wasn't even accepted into Iowa State straight out of high school. I actually was a community college, and the first time I even talked to someone about college was it was my senior year of high school.
Wow.
I was asking my dad for $20, and he's like, "What do you want $20 for?" I was just like, "I'm applying to college." He's like, "Oh, okay." And then we actually sat down, had a conversation. He paid for the applications, didn't get accepted in Iowa State, so he just wasted $20. But then went to community college for a year.
Right.
After a year of community college, I think I completed 43 credits, and right after that first year, just transferred straight to Iowa State, and went from undeclared to going into electrical engineering. And even as an electrical engineer, I was still pursuing internships. I actually even had an opportunity. There was a company called NextEra Energy. Pretty cool company, working with solar panels. It was a good opportunity out in Florida. And I think got accepted, and they said, got 2 weeks to make a decision.
Where was this? You said Florida?
It was Florida, yeah. And I interviewed with them at Iowa State, and they gave me the offer 2 weeks to make a decision. However, at the same time, during that 2 week period, I had an interview with Boeing, and at the time I was like, oh my God, Boeing, it's a big name, right?
I just looked at you like, whoa.
Yeah, it's just it's a big fish. It's just that's how I described it at the time. But I interviewed with them, and I personally thought it went really well.
Right.
And I was in a position where I had to make this decision before I knew what Boeing was going to say to me. So I actually ended up turning down NextEra Energy, and at the time, I thought it was a good decision, but today I think it was terrible. Just due to the fact, it was my reasoning was the flaw. Because at the time I was in a place where I thought I was just like, okay, if I get this big name, on my resume, this is it. This is what I want. I never actually thought about the what next, That's not something I actually considered at that age. But turned down NextEra, and then I'm waiting for Boeing, waiting. Month goes by, and no response. Right? So summer starts, I hit them up, and they tell me, like, oh, sorry, you've been turned down. So now I'm just empty-handed, right? I got nothing to do. So that summer, I ended up doing apartment cleaning. So we were just cleaning apartments, and it was actually...
You needed to make money.
Yeah, it was funny because it was me and Wadud that were actually doing that.
Really?
Yeah. So, like, if for you that don't know, me and Wadud go way back. Known him since I was 8, but, like, yeah, that's something me and him were doing together. We're just cleaning apartments. That's something we did for a summer, and then next year rolls around, and I switched majors, mechanical engineering now. I had a different mindset, and actually not a different mindset. I was still under that same frame of I want that big name on my resume. So I'm pursuing, and I get another opportunity, a company called Altec Industries, and it was for a co-op out in California.
And how'd you get that opportunity with them?
So that was through the Iowa State Career Fair.
Okay.
And went pretty well, just a simple interview, just behavioral questions, things like that. Went well, got the offer, and NSBE Nationals rolls around. And what NSBE is the National Society of Black Engineers. Amazing organization. If you're an engineer, highly recommend joining. Rolls around, and it gives me the opportunity to talk to a company that's not at my college, which is General Electric. And I had the opportunity of interviewing with GE Aviation. And I was actually in the same position again, right? So this time it was Altec Industries, had a couple weeks to give them a decision, and during that time span, I had my interview with GE, right? And I had to give Altec my decision before I found out what GE was going to say. And again, I made that same decision. I went for the big fish.
What? You turned them down?
Yeah, I turned Altec down, went for GE, and alhamdulillah, it worked out because GE came back to me and, they gave me the offer, and I ended up co-oping at headquarters in Cincinnati. However, it wasn't until the semester ended, I sat down and I was just doing some reflecting. I was just like, why did I do that?
Right, because usually people learn from their mistakes. You're like, I should not take the company that you...
I had that epiphany after I did it. I had that. Let's just say I had the epiphany. We'll just keep it at that.
Okay.
It was bad decision making, but...
I mean, it's not that bad. You interned at GE, General Electric.
But yeah, it was a good thing to have that epiphany, because at the time I realized, I was like, oh my God, like, I've been chasing all these names and like not even thinking about like what happens next after this. Like, okay, I get the co-op, then work full time, and it's like, is that what I really want? Is that what I want to do? That's something I never actually thought of. And like, if you're watching this video, I highly encourage you to ask yourself, what next? So whatever it is, let's say you want to be someone goes in music. Let's say you want your Ph.D. Let's say you want to work at Tesla. Ask yourself, what next? Like, you get there, then what? Like, what do you want to do after that? That's not something most people consider, and that's not something I ever considered. But it wasn't until I made that mistake the second time, like, alhamdulillah, it worked out. Like, I actually sat down and was just like, oh my God, like, it's just been like a rat race.
Yeah.
Like, I was stuck in that mind frame. I just never actually thought about what I personally wanted, or like what my pursuit of purpose was. And at that time, that's when I really dove into it. I'm just like, oh my God, like, I need to figure out what I want to do with my life. Like, life just, it doesn't, like, your whole life isn't just so you can go work at a job, right? That's not it. That's not your life. Like,
sure.
You got to think about what type of life you want yourself. What do you want kids? When do you want kids? Where do you want to live? Like, the world's a huge place. Do you want to be in Iowa? Do you want to be in California? Do you want to be in Spain? Do you want to be in Sudan? Do you want to be in Singapore? Like, these are things no one ever, like, I mean, people do consider it, but it's just, I highly encourage you to consider it now while you are in college. Because it's the time to, ask yourself these type of questions.
And what really, because you didn't really talk about the process of landing the internship. Because a lot of people right now might be in the boat where they're applying to internships or applying for different positions, and they might think of themselves, I might not be the best candidate for this. I'm not going to apply for it. Because you speak about a lot of, just real quick, this thing that Ahmed always speaks about to me is like, if you don't attempt at something, or if you don't go out and pursue something that you are interested in, you have a 0% chance of obtaining it. Right?
Yeah, so like one thing people always talk about is luck. And I don't like the word luck, just because it seems like, like you got lucky, like it wasn't really meant to be, but it happened. But guess what? If you sat down, the chance of you succeeding at something is 0%. Simply just getting up and just trying something raises that percentage from 0% to a higher percentage. And there are multiple factors that go into it, right? So, like, when it comes to getting an internship, it's what experience do you have? I did not have that, so that was not a factor, right? But more importantly is, are you a learner? And that's one thing that's really important, because one thing people don't know about me is in high school, I actually had like a 2.7 or something. And then even in college, when I think in the previous episode I mentioned imposter syndrome, I was really struggling in school. I think in my second semester out of state, or not think, I know, I was on academic probation. So, right, I was recovering from that. While I interviewed with GE, I think it was what was it? It's a 2.98. Like, I was still recovering from academic probation. If it wasn't for my academic probation, I would have been well above a 3. However, that's something I was still going through. And they don't accept anyone that's not above a 3. So during the interview, they straight up told me, he's like, hey, we'll give you an offer for the fall, but I need to ensure that you have a 3.0 before you get there, because we've had this happen where someone has a 3 or below a 3 and they get to GE and we just turn them back. We send them back home, right? So I was very fortunate that I was in that position. I was able to finish with above a 3, and then I was able to take my offer. But even when you're recovering from academic probation, like, you're not as qualified, because I had the bad GPA. I didn't have experience. I had apartment cleaning. Like, cleaning apartments on my resume. Like, you know what? Like, no internships. Like, how does that relate to working with engines, you know?
Right.
And I think one thing I could really capitalize on was the fact that I was someone that was a hard worker, right? So if you don't have the experience, capitalize on your skills. That's the number one thing you got to capitalize on. Because especially when people talk about getting that first internship, like, it's really hard, but put yourself in a position where you can showcase your skills. So for me, I didn't have the internship, so I joined NSB and IEEE, so Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. I became the secretary of the club and joined Engineering Student Council. I was a representative there. On top of that, I became the treasurer at NSB. And then these are opportunities to show, like, hey, I'm good with my finances. I manage money at NSB by allocating or managing a budget of, I think it was $25,000 for that academic year, as well as being a secretary, great communication skills, so I'm good at communicating with people. And lastly, I straight up tell like during interviews when they ask you, like, you know, why should we hire you? It sounds very cliche, but I'll straight up tell them, like, hey, although I don't have the relevant experience, one thing that I'm really, really good at is the ability to adapt. I can adapt to any situation you put me in, and I am a hard worker. So although I might not know something, I have a willingness to learn, and I can pick it up. And I'm going to work hard to get it. And it sounds very... Appreciate it, man. It sounds cliche, but you just be real. Like, showcase who you actually are. Don't try to be someone you're not. Because at the end of the day, they're trying to hire you. And I think it was... Google actually really collects a lot of data on this type of stuff, like when recruiting people. I think it was like GPA reflects only the first 2 years of performance at the workplace. After that, it's irrelevant, like determining how someone's going to perform.
Right.
Remember those type of things. So showcase who you are. I think that's the number one thing you could do.
And so what do you say to people who, because there's individuals out there like, oh, grades don't matter. They matter.
Oh, grades do matter.
Grades do matter.
As someone that struggled with them, grades do matter.
They matter just to get you in as a stepping stone.
Oh, it's a crucial stepping stone. Like, it's something that plays a factor, because as much as it sucks, like I was saying in the previous episode, like, school is one of those things. It's like, hey, taking all this information, regurgitate it on a piece of paper. You do that successfully, you get a good grade.
Right.
Like, what does that really show? It can show you can follow directions. So, like, I guess that's something they consider during, like, interviews, which makes sense. But if you don't have the GPA, work for the GPA, because at the end of the day, it's only going to help you. It never hurts to have a good GPA, so it doesn't make sense to put yourself in that position.
Exactly.
I was in that position, and I learned from it.
Right. And it does suck that GPA is something that it objectivizes something that's subjective.
Yeah.
Your individual talents coming into a job interview or coming into a position, it sucks that first thing they look at is on the top of their resume, right up top, GPA. If they see something they don't like, they're tossing you. They're not going to look at anything else on your resume.
GPA never tells the full story.
It doesn't.
Part of the reason I was, like, on academic probation, it wasn't just a mixture of the imposter syndrome. It was actually, before I even stepped foot onto a college campus, I was in debt, or my family was. So, like, I had the mindset of, like, oh my God, like, if I don't succeed, like, I'm not going to be able to help. So, like, that is one of those things that, like, somewhat hindered me in the classroom because I was more concerned about my actual finances than I was about performing well in school. But I realized, like, hey, performing well in school is only going to help me in the future with managing my finances.
Exactly.
But it sucks that it never tells the whole story, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Play the cards you've been dealt.
Play the cards that you've been dealt. And Ahmed, just real quick, in terms of your extracurriculars, because a lot of people don't go out and because you can have a good GPA, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first part. We said that's the top of the paper, the top of the resume. But then they follow through and see what are you involved in. So you, kind of working backwards, you were very involved, but maybe didn't have the highest GPA. But you still got the position you wanted because
you
of the
gotta do a
fact
mixture of both, because like you said,
Right.
Being heavily involved does hurt your GPA a little bit, but I think there's a fine balance. It's kind of hard to define, but at the end of the day, if you join some organization at your school, they'll understand that you're a student first, because everyone in that organization is the same boat as you are. They understand, like, hey, I have classes to attend to. I have grades that I need to get. So they'll understand if, like, hey, can you help me out with this project, guys? Like, I can't really do it because, I have my physics exam. Like, people get that.
Yeah.
They're students.
Exactly. For sure. And yeah, Ahmed, again, thank you for coming back and telling us about your story and how you got to GE and everything. But is there anything else that you want to just mention or leave them with in terms of maybe people who are pursuing internships, if this is going to be kind of specific, or shooting for a position and they don't have the greatest GPA? What else could they do to kind of like strengthen their resume or strengthen their chances of getting that position?
I think what dude really hit on this. One thing I didn't utilize as much as I should have was LinkedIn.
Here we go again.
I know dude talks about this a lot, and like
It really is though. Yeah.
at the time, like I'm like, all right, whatever, we do. I didn't really like listen to him, but
Right.
seeing how powerful it is it's phenomenal, because you put yourself in a position was like, Tesla's not at Iowa State. They're not at Iowa State, right? And when dude put himself in a position where he's like, hey, they're not here, but I can get to them. We're at an age where your network isn't limited to who you know face to face. Like, that was like for our parents. We're now in a day of age where I could literally pull out my phone, go on LinkedIn, right? I'm not gonna do that right now, but like literally go on LinkedIn, type keywords, recruiter, company, Tesla, right? And all that pops up is recruiters at Tesla. Like, now my network isn't limited to people I know face to face. I can meet someone on the other side of the world if I wanted to by just simply sending a message. Maybe they respond, maybe they don't. It's a numbers game. It's just a matter of, do you really want it?
The power of LinkedIn.
Yeah, and you could literally ask them, like, hey, I know, I don't have the best qualifications right now, but what are 3 things that I can work on? What dude said it in his interview, but they'll literally tell you, like, hey, this is what we look for in our candidates, and here's some recommendations on things you can do to become an ideal candidate.
Exactly. Perfect. And again, Ahmed, thank you so much for joining us on the Your Pursuit of Purpose podcast, episode 5. And thank you for showing us just how to kind of navigate through, maybe if you're not academically fit at first, how to kind of adjust or adapt. Yeah. Adapt is the big word that he used that I really liked. So thank you for that. And until next time, where we'll see you on episode 6, keep pursuing your purpose. Thank you.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.